Saludos amigos de Lucha Libre Online, Michael Martínez con ustedes. En ruta al aniversario número 50 de la WWC, estamos trayendo los mejores luchadores, leyendas que marcaron la lucha libre puertorriqueña para siempre. Y en este episodio tengo a un rudazo, un hombre bien odiado en la isla, el hombre que puso los ratings de la WWC, mira, en las nubes con el café del milenio. Nada más y nada menos que el sucio Dodge Mantell. Dodge, let's start with the beginning of your career in Puerto Rico. How Dodge arrived in the island and what happened?
I was working in Tennessee,
Ah,
and the booker there was Tom Ernesto, who happened to be an old friend of Carlos.
okay.
And Carlos is Puerto Rican. Tom was like a Mexican American. And when you think about how far he came in a business that, was basically white dominated for years and years and years, Tom liked me and he said, I want to send you out on the road, which I didn't really want to go. But he said, for your career, you need to get out there. So I went to Puerto Rico. And one of the first things I learned when I got to Puerto Rico, I came in on January the 5th. I had no idea at all about Puerto Rican culture, Puerto Rican traditions, holidays. It was, to me, Puerto Rico was just an island that sit down, east of Cuba that I looked up on a map. And I knew absolutely nothing about Three Kings Day. And I came in on January the 5th, and the airport was just packed. And I was thinking, what the hell is this airport so full for? So I learned later on why it's a holiday, but I'd never even heard of Three Kings Day in my life to then. And now I know. So I got down there and they put me in this crappy hotel called the Hotel Tanama,
Okay.
which I found out later was frequented by drug dealers and late night prostitutes. I learned all that later, and of course, my first match in Puerto Rico was me and my partner Frankie Lane, who, by the way, I don't know if a lot of people know this, I had never met until that day. January the 6th, 1979 was the first time I ever met Frankie Lane. I'd heard his name tossed around, but never met him. So the first day was the Three Kings Day. Of course, holiday events sell out, and it was packed. And the people they were wild. Not wild, but see when a babyface makes his big comeback and his get even, series. Every time you throw a punch, they go, wow, wow.
Yeah.
And like in Japan, they do that too, but they're actually quiet during most of the match. They just sit there and just look at the match. But in Puerto Rico, they're actively engaged. So that's how we got started. And I learned later, Puerto Rican fans. I used to say about Puerto Rican fans that they thought the space program was fake, and wrestling was real. Because I have fought my way. This is the only place I've actually. You've heard of fighting back from the ring after the match. Frankie and I, at one point, still in the Clemente Coliseum, it was later on. We fought our way to the ring. Place is jam packed, and I remember getting in the ring and looking at that aisle that we had just come through that had already closed in because it was packed. 20,000, 21, how many would I hold? And I told Frankie, you know that little aisle we came in on the way back? He went, yeah. I said, we're going to have to go right back through that place in about 15 minutes. And I doubt if they leave. And they didn't leave. And that night, I remember it was a barbed wire match that we didn't get to have. Some people may remember this if you're 104 years old. But but some people may remember it because I remember it still very, you know, strongly. That I left the building at 2:30 in the morning
Wow.
because the people left, some of them, but the ones that hated us stayed and was a handful of rocks and was waiting for us to come out. And the police was staying with us. And finally, one of them spoke English. He said, "Hell, Dutch, I gotta go. I can't stay up there." He said, "I got paid to 1 o'clock." He said, "It's 2:30. I'm leaving." And they left. And then now we're sitting there going, "Oh God, oh God, now we got to go out there." But I really enjoyed Puerto Rico, and I think one of the reasons that I actually got over, or the team got over, is because of the gimmick, the $1,000 silver dollar challenge match, and
Okay.
I was plus I was the first heel who actually went out there and verbally trashed the island. I said, "You people need to learn English, and we give you food stamps and this, that." I said the men were kind of gayish. The women were like unpaid prostitutes. You can't say that now. And I didn't really use that language, but that's what it meant. They knew what it meant because I heard the announcer would translate. I don't know how he translated, and uh, and the translator was Joaquin Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
He just passed away, didn't he? Not long
Sadly,
ago.
yes. This week, yep. Sadly.
Yeah. I just read that. I still get some friends from Puerto Rico still send me some news about wrestling from down there. And McKean was a great guy too, but sometimes he would show up drunker than Cooter Brown. He'd say, "Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's drunker than hell." And then we'd have to cancel it sometimes, and we'd have to go another day. But good guy. So ask me
Dutch,
some questions here that I
yes.
can tell you.
If I'm not wrong, you are the first heel to trash talk to the audience in Puerto Rico, right?
Yes, I just said that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
I don't know if the other heels had done that, but that was my interview because I didn't want to get heat with just the guys I was wrestling. I needed heat with the people who bought tickets. I wanted them to have a personal investment seeing me get my ass kicked. And I must have did a good job because finally when we worked the, the big angle, they call it the big angle, we went outside into the stadiums and I think we sold out buildings for the next 9 weeks. Because Saturday night was the big night, of course,
mhm.
but it was packed. Actually, I bought my first house on my payoff from that 9 week run.
Wow.
And that was, now this was 1979, so money then, a lot different than money now. My biggest week in Puerto Rico back then, I think was 4,000 and something dollars for 3 days.
Wow.
That was more money than the guys in New York City were making. And I'm thinking, damn, what the hell? And when we got ready to go, I really didn't want to go, but they said, "Well, we're gonna send you guys out." I never understood why I was only there 10 months. I thought I'd make at least a year and a half. But after 10 months, I don't know. I left, but Frankie stayed. But once you break a team up, it's not the same. So I went home. Didn't want to, but because I like Puerto Rico. I like the beaches. I like the schedule because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I didn't even have to go do nothing. Just had to go to the beach and bullshit my way along. And how I learned Spanish, I'd be going down the street, and I still can't speak. I understand some of it, just like anything else, but I've never been formally taught Spanish. And people would just say things to me, and I didn't know what they were saying at first. I know now, but I thought it was because of my excellent wrestling effort, how great a wrestler I was. No, they cussed me out because they hated me as a human being. They would say, "Chingeti, man," you know, and I didn't know what it meant, but I went, "Wow, that can't be good." By the way they say it, "Chingeti, man," and when I would go out on the streets, I learned very early that my identifying characteristics was my cowboy hat. Never wear the hat. I'd always put my glasses on, and I just looked like a tourist then. But if I put that hat on, I couldn't go more than 10 feet. So, and that TV was very, very strong. It was one of probably the strongest TVs in the territorial system back in those days. The only other TV syndication setup for the territories as strong as, was it WAPA back in the day?
Yep.
Channel 4?
Still, today's day.
Okay. As strong as, the only other territory in the country that I knew that had a TV as strong as WAPA was Memphis. And Memphis would do huge ratings on Saturday morning. And WAPA TV, I mean, it was just, I guess it was people set their clock by it like they did in Memphis. But a heavily watched station in Puerto Rico.
Crazy. You went part of so many WWC anniversaries. How important for you was be part of it? And if you had remember any storyline, memorable storyline you did write for the WWC back then?
Storylines back then that I remember. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, I remember, of course, mine and the Abdulah and the Carlos rivalry. I told Carlos one time, I said, you know something, they should have wrote about you and Abdulah in the Bible. Because it went back that far. It started I know it started in 78. That went forever. And of course, there were some more memorable ones that if I'm not there, it's just somebody can mention it to me, but I don't have any recollections of it. But Carlos and Abdullah went for, I know it's probably the longest running angle in wrestling territorial history.
Any experience live in the WWC with Carlos, Jovica, Invader, another wrestler from that era? You have
well, Ray Gonzalez
about it?
Ray Gonzalez, I met him early when he was I didn't meet him when I was first there. I came back later, about, I don't know, a couple of years later. Then I came back and made some shots in the late 80s. And that's basically where I met Ray. And good guy. I mean, and a very intelligent man. He was very politically oriented. So and I love for him to start on one of his political rants. Oh my God. It would be half English, half Spanish, but I understood it. And he's about the only one I've stayed in contact with. Rico Suave. He's in Florida. I'm in Florida now. He's in Florida here. Apollo, he's in Florida. And another gentleman who worked in office named Victor. I stayed in contact with those guys because I knew them there, and they're here in Florida. It's probably the reason that I stayed in contact with them. And I had some great matches with Ray Gonzalez. I think you may remember or may not remember the Milenio family, Familia del Milenio.
La Familia del Milenio.
I don't even know how that started, but I mentioned it to Ray one day, and I said, something, what we might need to do? Why don't we start another hour just for us, just for the bad guy. So, and he I guess he passed that information on to Carlos. And I think before then the TV show was just an hour, and then they gave us 2 hours. So, and we always like we was at the top of the second hour, and it actually worked out. It, actually, I didn't know I was doing this, but I gave them another hour that they would get paid for. And this TV station liked it because now we're going to give them another hour of a show that had great ratings. You know, I said one time, you know, on Saturday at 12 or 1 o'clock, you know, that's when people have time to run around because on Sundays that everything's closed on Sundays. Used to be, right? Are they still like that?
More or less, more or less. A
Well,
few things.
and we used to draw ratings. Sometimes I think the highest rating we ever drew when I was there and I was booking was a 22.4. And I think 22. I said that's impossible. They said no, it's not. And then when I was there with Ray, we ended up doing a 22.4 rating, which is that was like I don't know how many people were in Puerto Rico then, 3.5 million, but they said that would be equal to like 800,000 800,000 people watching the show.
Yeah, basically,
So,
WWC had the highest ratings on TV with the creation of the Millennium Family or La Familia del Milenio.
was that when it when that was that when it was the highest?
Yes.
And I learned to book and to put things together. Remember the guy I told you that sent me to Puerto Rico, Tom Ernesto? I learned it from him. I learned it from tell a story that's believable, that's entertaining, that has shelf life or has legs, I called it, and you can ride that forever. As long as you don't do anything to really screw it up. I've seen that done 1,000 times by other bookers myself. But ride it till it dies. Ride it till the horse falls. And that I think is what's wrong with modern day wrestling today.
Yeah.
Is because they don't have patience. I don't know what the word for patience is in Spanish, but
Paciencia.
they want to boom, 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 and it's gone. Take patience. Plus, I was I think not one of the first ones, but I would take the taping out of the studio. I would go out on the road. I would go to Old San Juan with Exotico, and they would. I remember one time I went down there and I was looking for Miguel Perez, and we interviewed people on the street that were really street people, and hell, they were better than some of the talent talking. And we tell them what we want them to say. They're looking for Miguel Perez. Have you seen him? And you did. Oh no, yes, I saw him. And so we give them like $20, which was them great. So they would tell the story we wanted to tell. But I would go to the beach. I would go here. I would go there. Millennial Family Course was on a different set. So I was one of the first ones to do that. And it worked great. It broke your TV. When you're watching TV, just see match after match after match is boring, I think. So I would go on the road with it and tell a little story that was a little bit different. And apparently the people liked it because it drew.
Yeah. Dutch, who is your favorite wrestler from Puerto Rico and why?
Give me that question again.
Who is your favorite wrestler from Puerto Rico and why?
I guess Ray Gonzalez.
Ray Gonzalez.
Always. I mean, you know, when you meet somebody and you just kind of click with them automatically. I mean, you don't even have to work at it. And Ray was funny, and he liked my bullshit. So he was easy to work with, and
Talk
he
about,
but he understood
uh-huh.
the business, or he understood the art the art of wrestling. He understood it naturally. And I don't know who taught him, but they taught him well. I guess Carlos probably taught him that. And Carlos was always looking for the guy that would succeed him. I think he decided on Ray. But then, of course, you know, the WWE came along and took all the mom and pops away, all the territories away, and took over the country. So, and it's amazing that Puerto Rico has lasted as long as it has. It's truly unbelievable. I think one of the things that protected it was the Caribbean, for one thing, because it was so. I mean, it didn't connect to any other country or any other state, so that was probably one thing. But I will congratulate them on their long run and successful run, I might add.
What is your opinion of Ray Gonzalez running the creative part from WWC, since he learned a lot from you?
What is my opinion of Ray Gonzalez? What?
Running the creative part from WWC right now, since he learned a lot from you.
So what is he doing now? Is he still with WWC? You got to catch me up. I don't follow.
He's with WWC. He's the one in charge for the creative, you know, the book and stuff.
Oh,
So he's the one. That's what. So what do you think about it?
Oh, he's qualified for it.
Yeah.
Because, and to me, I think that they have had other bookers, I think, in Puerto Rico. I don't think they understood their own people. I don't think they understood really. I think, well, the Invader used to book, and I don't think he just thought about Invader. He didn't really think about that much about anything else, unless it involved him, and then he'd have a lot of thoughts about it. But Ray knows that, you know, to have a territory, you got to involve the first match all the way up to your main event.
How important is that the WWC celebrates its 50 years being the only territory in Puerto Rico to achieve?
Yeah, well, I don't like it myself because it reminds me how old I am. But this is just the 50th anniversary. The actual company is older than that. I think they started like in 74, maybe something like that, 75. But I think when they got the name and they did their first anniversary, on the first anniversary, they had to have at least 1 year to celebrate. So I think the territory, instead of 50 years old, I think it's more like 52 or 53. So let me ask you a question. How is Carlos doing?
Carlos is not doing that well right now.
Yeah.
He's really ill. But he's still fighting. You know, Carlos, he's trying to do his best to keep going.
Yeah, well, he was a fighter. He always was. And Carlos would tell me stories. And you got to really appreciate, and Carlos told me a story one time of where he came from. What was the town that he came from down there? What was the name of it? You remember? It's on the way to Ponce. I know that. I can't remember the name of it. But he grew up there, and I don't know how old he was when he went to New York. But he got into wrestling in New York, and then he started wrestling, and then he went to Canada first, and bounced around here and there, and maybe a few other places. And he went to Calgary, and that's where he met Jovica.
Yeah.
And they got together and come back and formed a territory.
Yeah.
And that was a gutsy move. I mean, he had never really had a territory before with TV coverage till Carlos and Jovica did it.
Yeah. For you, Dutch, who is Carlos Colón?
Well, he helped me a lot when I first come down there because he spoke English, not perfectly, but fluently. And if I had a problem, I would go to Colón. And I think that he's a good man, and I know his wife, good woman. And for me personally, I call him a friend. And until the day I leave this earth, I still call him a friend. Good guy. Helped me. He helped me get through. He helped me get through Puerto Rico. He used to have a rule that he would put the main event on fourth. And I thought that was the stupidest idea I have ever heard in my life. So he told me one time, I asked him, I said, why do you do that? I didn't tell him it was stupid, but I said, why do you do that? He said, well, the people of Puerto Rico like to drink. And he says, if we put you guys on last, he said, you'd never make it out of it. And I went, bullshit. So later on, I did find out that if the people were that jazzed up by the fourth match, what would they be like at the end of the night when we really cranked up some heat? Yeah, we'd never make it back. I mean, in Caguas or Bayamon, that big stadium, brutal sometimes, brutal. I mean, an exotic coach told me one time, he said, Dutch, when I was a little kid, I used to go to the matches and I would sell rocks. I would sell rocks to the fans for a nickel a piece, and then at the end they would end up throwing them at me. At least he was a businessman, but I mean they was probably the rowdiest, craziest fans I've ever been around. Now I've been around a few riots, but Puerto Rico was crazy. I mean, we used to have to. The dugout was sit right here, and they'd ring the bell, and it was time for us to go. We would wait and wait. Kids would get on top of the dugout and wait for us with their hands full of rocks, wait for us to come out. And I would go one way, and Frank would go the other way, so at least we wouldn't be together. And you could see it hitting all around you. That's why I started wearing a poncho, and that's why I got a bigger hat, so I could turn my poncho, drop it down in the hat, so it would catch the rocks coming out of the stand. Now I'm glad it was rocks instead of bottles, but they thrown bottles too. So it was actually I walked out of a match one time because the people were throwing so much stuff. It was with Invader. I forgot where it was. I just walked out, and they counted me out. And he asked me next to me, Miguel, what you need? What you need next? I said, brother, I'm not getting hit in the head by a bottle. He said, oh, no, you're okay. I said, no, they weren't throwing at you. They were throwing at me. I said, don't ever say another word to me about leaving. Because I am not going to leave bleeding or with a concussion from a bottle somebody threw. Now, they used to have good security, and I guess Jovica ended up being a little bit cheaper than I thought. And all of a sudden, they weren't even security. Then you were your own security. How can you do that? But we got it through. I remember one night coming out of a ring in Puerto Rico. Oh, I'm sorry. Abdulah was in the ring, so I went to the dugout to watch it. So, and they encircled the infield. You know where the sand starts and the grass ends from the outfield? They enclosed him in that. And brother, it was like a biblical stoning. Choo, 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 choo. And I'm out there, and there's nothing I can do. So I picked up a 2x4, I remember, in the dugout and threw it toward a guy that was, throwing stuff. And it hit him. And before he went down, I saw blood. I went, oh my God. I said, oh my God. I ran. I said, oh my God. I hope nobody saw that. But But you could always say it came from somewhere else. But they threw things, and if they would have kept up, if one of those rocks had hit Abdulah on the head and he went down, no telling what would have happened. Crazy stuff. So if you're the guy that got hit in the head going around the infield, one of those Abdulah matches, he threw the two for us. It was me. So, but if he gets this tape and he tries to charge you with that, I'll just say I was incoherent. I don't remember that. I made it up.
Thank you very much for sharing those stories with us. They're really, really, really nice. Dutch, one last message for all your fans in Puerto Rico.
Yep. Well, I appreciate them being there. Best fans in the world, I think, because they don't like you, and you can tell. I used to say when a wrestler goes to the ring, he needs to feel. Now this is like inside arenas. You need to feel the temperature in the room. Well, when I went to the ring in Puerto Rico, I didn't have to feel that temperature. It felt me. Because you can feel tension in the air. I remember all those little towns, we went through Manatee, and we go to Mayaguez, and Ponce, all those other, and when we had that hot angle going on between me and Carlos and Hurricane Castillo, and anyway, when you go to the ring, you can feel them. So, but when you come back from the ring, you can feel them too, because that's when they may be delivering little presents to you. But we made it. I made it in. I made it out, and I like Puerto Rico. I spent about eight years there, 6 maybe, and I would come in and say 3 months. I would, so I count that as part of it. But I spent a lot of time in Puerto Rico and enjoyed my time there. So to all the people who supported me during my times in Puerto Rico, thank you very much. And I wish I could do it again, but hell, we're all too old.
No, just say that. But you think you will be willing to go back to the WC for one more run or something?
Oh no.
Helping booking or something? Helping Ray?
Not really. I mean, I would be open to making suggestions, but as far as coming back and doing it, I'll probably never be back, other than vacation. So.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. From Lucha Libre Online and me personally, we wish you all the best. Happy 2023, and hope to see you around soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.